Thank you very much, and good evening. Yes, my name is Chris. I'm chair of Saffron Walden Community Energy, and great to hear the previous two presentations and talks. Just seems to be quite a lot happening in terms of eco groups and organisations around the place getting going or doing activities. So more of it, really. So we've been in Saffron Walden Community Energy, we've been running a few years, and I'm going to talk about one of the main projects we're involved with, which is trying to look at decarbonising a village. So in effect, trying to set up an eco group there, help them move towards decarbonisation, but in a way that is reproducible across other villages in the area. So it started off in effect last year, initiated by a consortium of Littlebury Parish Council. Littlebury is quite a small village just near Saffron Walden. Then our district council, Uttlesford, the county council, Essex, and then from the community energy side, Community Energy South, which is like an umbrella organisation of community energy groups in the south of England, and us. So Community Energy South kind of gave guidance and direction, and we did we were the foot soldiers doing the work on the ground. So the first phase was through 2022, and we received funding from our district council and a lot of voluntary input to get the project up and running. And this first phase was really just collecting information about the village in terms of its energy use and people's attitudes and views. And one of the best ways we found of doing that was we sent out a questionnaire to the whole village, about 240 homes, and we had about 70 responses back, which is quite a good hit rate really. And it was information, and we were asking information about the type of homes people lived in, how much energy they used, kind of car, whether they're interested in electric cars, a whole spectrum of things. Not challenging, just trying to get information. That was one of the successful parts, and the other successful part was the bottom point, a village open day, where we presented some of the information we found. We had a few tradespeople there, someone who's doing insulation, some few experts on renewable technologies, and just our group as well. And we must have had about 100 people through, which is quite a large number for the size of the village, and it again generated a lot of interest in what we were doing. So the outcomes of that initial phase were that we got a good understanding as to the barriers to decarbonisation, which are quite universal, really. Cost is one. It costs quite a lot of money to replace your windows with better ones or put on solar panels on your roof. Engagement was a big issue as well. A lot of people, as the first speaker mentioned, are probably too frightened to know really where to start, or don't know where to start, or they're not interested. Interest shot up quite a lot with the increase in energy price, because we were looking primarily at energy. So we ended up couching a lot of, or putting a slight spin on a lot of work that we've been doing in terms of saving energy and saving money rather than climate change. Pros and cons of that, but it's just one of the interesting things where you can engage with pretty much everybody by looking at talking about saving energy and saving money. Right, so a couple of the other barriers to decarbonisation: regulation. We've got a lot of listed buildings here in the village, in the village of Littlebury, so which is causes problems, and lack of expertise. Who do you go and talk to if you really want to have a good survey of your house done to learn how to decarbonise it, save energy? We produced quite a detailed report on the village energy use, and then on routes to decarbonisation, giving case studies of what people could do to their own homes and what other villages and communities are doing. And there were two case studies from Cambridgeshire. There was the Reach solar farm that's already been mentioned, and also the Saffron heat network, which is a very impressive installation. And we had evidence of enough interest to take it through to the next stage of the project, which is to try and turn this into concrete action. So I'm going to just rattle quickly through, because time's fairly limited, rattle quickly through what we've done and what we're doing. But I'm sure the slides will be available afterwards if you want to look at that in more detail or get in contact. And then a few points at the end of just some of the things I think I've learned about setting up these kind of groups and running these kind of groups. But so this year, what have we done? We were fortunate enough to get £34,000 funding from Uttlesford District Council's Zero Carbon Communities grant. And that's enabled us to pay a project worker to work 6 days a month, and I get paid a couple of days to project manage it. We've established a working group in the village, which is like the core of our eco group. And we're very fortunate there to have a number of enthusiastic and competent people. We're training up 2 people to do domestic energy assessments and retrofit assessments as well, so we can give actual high value information to the villagers as to what needs to be done to their homes. And as I've mentioned, the aim is to spread this model to other villages. So hopefully we can get to a point where we've got enough resources and know-how that this model can be reproduced fairly easily in other villages. We've set up a thermal imaging service, and very similar to what's done by Cambridge Carbon Footprint. And actually, it's Tom at CCF was very helpful in chatting to me for a while about how the service there is run. That's a great way of engaging with people, and a sort of first step on the route to trying to understand where your heat's going in your home and where it's leaking, and then what you can start to do about it. Right, sorry, probably a bit too much detail on this slide, but other things we're working on at the moment. We're trying to collect more detailed data on overall village energy use. So, for example, if we do get down the route of trying to establish some form of community energy, as Reach have done, then we'll need to have a good understanding of the energy needs and requirements of the village as we move towards decarbonisation. We don't yet have a website, as the previous speaker, but this is a point that we need to get on top of, because I see that as well as being crucial for information about the project. So, for example, case studies and information about grants. So if you've got a house of a particular age, we want to have enough case studies so that you can go onto the website and then look and see what other people with similar kind of homes have done to their homes to improve the energy efficiency. Our planning authority has also been quite constructive in working with us on how to handle listed buildings and the fact it's a conservation area. So I'm not going to talk about this slide in detail. It's just to give the impression of all the points we're working on, and the fact that actually I thought this project was going to be quite simple to get going. But there are just so many moving parts that it's quite difficult to get on top of, and we need a good number of people working on them. So beyond Littlebury, we already have 2 other villages who are starting down the same route, and another 1 or 2 who are interested in starting as well. And we are going to be part of a larger project, which is run by Community Energy South and Essex County Council, to develop this kind of model to a few clusters of villages throughout Essex. So, and villages around Saffron Walden will be one of those clusters. So we're looking to we're hoping that this will kind of change gear, and we'll take it up a level and get a bit further. So just a few thoughts to finish on my experience of setting up this group, or Saffron Walden Community Energy, also the Littlebury group, and talking to other groups which are starting up in the area. One thing I guess which is obvious is you do need a core group of people. One of the reasons Saffron Walden Community Energy took quite a long time to get going was I was trying to push it myself for quite a while. It's so much better to have a group of people working on it. I talk to some people and they say, "Oh, we don't have any experts on renewable energy in our village, so we can't really get going." But I think it's far more important to have people with enthusiasm, some common sense, and a bit of drive to push it forward. It's quite straightforward to bring in expertise to give a talk on thermal imaging or to give a talk on renewable energy. You want to start with issues that resonate with your group and your community. Again, some of the funding we had initially was to do some projects, small projects, but they didn't really resonate with the community. And I think we just spent a lot of time pushing and not getting anywhere. But if you give things a bit of time and you're open, I think you start to find what resonates with the people you work with and your community. So the last few points of this one, funding helps. It makes a great, enormous amount of difference. If you can get a little bit of money to help cover costs of maybe liability insurance or booking a hall or something like that. If you can get people's time paid for, that's even better. That does make quite a difference, because you're not just then relying on volunteers. I mean, volunteers are great. We all doing a lot of volunteering, and volunteering is the kind of foundation of what we do in many respects. But you're sort of then using people's time when it's free rather than actually paying for it. But only get funding, as I mentioned before, if it really aligns with your aims. So work out what you're trying to do. It can be quite tempting just to scrabble around and say, oh, there's some funding to do, there's some funding over there, let's apply for it. But actually, it doesn't really overlap with what you're trying to do, or it's work that doesn't resonate with where the community's at. And some of the challenges I've noticed here and elsewhere, burnout. Over the years in Saffron Walden, we've had a number of groups that have been set up. They kind of burn very brightly, and then they're extinguished after a while, because I think there's a huge amount of enthusiasm and or desperation because of the climate crisis, but people find it difficult to maintain that. So also, this work can feel very slow getting things going, but we're in it for the long haul. I mean, this project in Littlebury, we've only got funding for 1 year, but we're talking about how we make it sustainable over the next several years. It's what I call the pedalo effect. This combination, really. You know, if you sit in a pedalo, you can you turn the pedals and you can move across a lake somewhere, and you're gradually getting somewhere. If you turn the pedals really hard, put an awful lot of energy into it, you really don't get that much further, that much faster. You're just wasting energy. So, you know, work within the energy and means you have. Managing a group of volunteers is great, but can be challenging because they're volunteers. You can't really tell them what to do, and there can be lots of different agendas. People generally like talking too much, so it can be quite difficult chairing meetings and trying to focus on things. But the enthusiasm is great on the whole. And one of the challenges is reaching all parts of the community. There are lots of parts of the community that don't engage. Often the people, if we're talking about energy, the people who need it the most, those on low income, there's some very good funding around to get their homes improved or retrofitted, but often they don't necessarily engage with it. It's the typical kind of demographic of people who usually get involved. But all background work that you can do, I think, is really useful and helps prepare for opportunities, so that when that funding does come along, that overlaps with what you're trying to do, you're, to use the expression, shovel ready and can jump at the opportunity. I've seen so many cases where funding comes along and people say, all right, let's work something out and write a grant application. At that stage, it's usually too late. It's difficult to get a good application in, and difficult to kind of really convince funders that you know it's going to be what you want. So I think, oh yeah, sorry, that's repeating that one. Yeah. So, and I'm quite hopeful. I think many of us in our groups are, that maybe if we see a change of government, then funding and support for the kind of work we're doing the background might change a bit. So okay, that's what we're doing here.